Welcome back to another hour of Scotch Hour. I'm Noah.
I'm Jesse.
And I am Brian.
Welcome back, Brian.
Good to be here. Been a long time.
Welcome back, Carter.
Been a long time since you rock and roll.
Been a long time.
So this is episode 125.
125.
Holy cow.
So this evening, I think we have a fun lineup. We got a new Scotch that we haven't seen before. So Jesse will be introducing us to the Isle of Raasay. Raasay, okay. And then from there, we got our shout-outs, get-togethers, our restaurant review being Old Santa Fe Mexicant Restaurant. And we got our Smarter Challenge being Oppenheimer, the movie review.
Scotch Reviewed.
All right, this week's Scotch, as Noah mentioned, the no age statement NOS. Isle of Raasay single malt Scotch whiskey, promising to be an interesting treat. The Isle of Raasay is about, if you're driving, 223 miles north of Isla. So you've got Isla, and just above Isla is Jura, and then hundreds of miles further north, just in between Skye and the mainland of Scotland, is the Isle of Raasay. It's an isle rooted in centuries of illicit distilling. It's kind of weird that they actually take such pride of that. Like, we used to murder people, but now we just make guns. What? So it is an island with a long-rooted history in illicit distilling, which they do believe, though, makes it have all of the ingredients for a perfect dram. Their water source is the Raasay Distillery private well, and it is believed that this millennial-old water source, as it rains and the water drips down the mountains into their well, is part of what gives it its great flavor. And it is believed to have a really nice blackberry flavor even before they begin their 3 to 5 day process of fermentation. The population on this island is a mere 161 little people. We're going to call them little people because I didn't see them on the map, right? And again, it is rooted in between the Isle of Skye and the mainland of Scotland. So one of the reasons we're so excited to share this dram of Scotch tonight is just because we have not ourselves had a dram from this island in the past. It is non-chill filtered. There is no color added. 46.4% ABV. And again, man, as we've talked about, the water sources for a lot of the distilleries, Glenmorangie, the Macallan, all of the big distilleries really have a water source that they protect to begin their distillation process. And I know Noah has got a lot to say about the tours here. Just a couple other little pieces is that they do take pride in capturing the island in the bottle. And this bottle, made to look like a decanter, or much looks like a decanter, is it's a nice looking bottle. It is great. They do use Highland peat for this lightly peated Scotch, and they use 100% Scottish barley.
Brian, you have anything you want to say before I jump in with the tours?
No, I'm pretty excited to taste it. It sounds interesting. The whole the water coming through the whale of Pale Cow and falling through across a volcanic rock and filtered through Jurassic sandstones make it sound pretty appealing to me. That and the fact that anything that leads off with smoky balance and Highland peat is right up my alley for Scotch flavor.
Don't worry, that's not a dinosaur tour.
All right, so they do have a few different tours here with this distillery. They got the distillery tour and tasting. Children can attend this one. So you're allowed to have children from 8 to 17 years old attend. It is a 1 hour tour. Its approximate price is 19 USD or 15 Great British Pounds. They also have this distillery also does gin as well. So they have a whiskey, gin, and chocolate tour and taste. This also children can attend this one as well from ages 8 to 17 years old. It is adults are 20 Great British Pound or 26 USD. And it's about 1 hour. Then we have the distillery bottling and warehouse tour. With this one, tour finishes with a tasting of 2 drams and an Isle of Raasay gin. This one here is 20 Great British Pounds or 26 USD approximately, and it's 1 hour in duration. Then we get to the Dunnage Cask Warehouse tour. And this tour is it's a tour guide and distiller of the distillery. They'll show you through the production area of the distillery, followed by a trip to the Dunnage warehouse to talk you through a tasting of 6 cask strength whiskeys, all carefully selected by their distilling team. This is 96 USD or 75 Great British Pounds. And then they got the secret Edinburgh whiskey tasting, which is about 1 to 1.5 hours long, 32 US dollars approximately, and 25 Great British Pounds. So they have a variety of tours for one to go on and try some of their tastings.
All right. And one thing they do note here is that with their recipes, they do have 6 casks, styles or types that they use in making and creating these single malt scotches. They do have both peated and unpeated rye whiskey casks. They have peated and unpeated Chinkopin oak casks and peated and unpeated Bordeaux red wine casks that they use when they are making their scotch.
So how do you say that one? The virgin white?
I'm just calling it Chinkopin.
Chinkopin? Nailed it. You want to take a shot?
I think it's Chinkopin. Chinkopin oak.
Chinkopin oak.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe even Shinkopin. Shinkopin sounds good. Yeah, Shinkopin.
Nailed it.
Chinkopin.
We'll figure that out.
All right. Well, do you want to undress the box here?
Let's take a look at this. So the box itself, I do think is actually a very handsome box. I do like what they're doing here with the letters. I like that it is, in this case, an unorthodox. It's not round. It is a more, do you want to say, not delicate, but designed plan here with both the bottle made to look, or at least which does look, if not intentionally, much like a decanter. And that looks like a solid wood top to me. I do like the decorations on the box and the bottle itself.
No foil, coach.
No, it's got plastic.
They talked about it having Raasay fossils and rocks molded into the glass. Do you feel any fossils or rocks in that glass? They just mold it into it, so it's not. You're gonna feel the mold of the fossils
so
in
it's
the
like
rock.
like the dimples or whatever within the glass.
Yeah. So you won't actually find the fossils.
So
in
basically,
the
they
glass.
start by blowing it and then they smash it.
Maybe, I don't know. However one molds glass to fossils, I'm guessing they just dump glass over some fossils and let
Get
it
it nice and round,
solidify.
Square it up with some rocks and fossils, and that definitely does look like a fossil.
Do you see any
Real
fossils
or
in there?
fake. Well, I don't see any fossils, but I see the.
Do you see the mold of a
impression.
fossil?
I see the impression of a fossil. I don't know that I want anything that old in my.
I'm not sure you want to smash a bottle either. I think kids nowadays use smash differently than some other folk, the older folk.
Yeah, it's all different.
Chinkopin.
Chinkapin.
Chinkapin.
All right.
I think you nailed that the first time.
Yeah.
I did.
Well
It just
done.
didn't sound politically correct.
All right. Peel the plastic. Let's see
We're
what
going
we
to
got.
move forward with this bottle, this design.
I like the color of it. Just looking at it through the bottle, I like that color.
I figured you were going to go there and be the smart aleck and be like, oh, yeah, I like glass. I like the color of clear glass.
The color of the clear. Well, yeah, I do like the color of just a nice clear glass to see the color of the Scotch.
All right. Once you remove the plastic, hard and soft, malleable plastic seal, it does have a paper seal that is taped or glued on there. Oh, man, that is definitely a peated Scotch with some pressure. It is a solid, oversized wood topper with a solid cork.
Thank you, sir.
How you doing?
How you doing?
Got a nice nose. She said.
All right. Off to our warp speed and cheers.
Cheers.
All right, well, that was a very good Scotch, in my opinion. I am going to start off by talking about the presentation. And I really, really like the presentation. I wanted to give it a 5 on the presentation scale. And here's what I said about it. It's rugged, yet inviting. It's simple, but it's not cheap looking. So I really like that. So the reason I was initially at a 5, I dropped it down for a 4 just because if I'm drinking Scotch, though, I might rather see that in like an American whiskey, the way it's bottled. Scotch, I do want it to look a little bit more elegant, but that's what I got there. Color, I gave it a 4. I thought it was a nice golden yellow. For something to be a 5 for me, I kind of wanted a little bit more amber to it. The aroma starts off as slightly smoky with a hint of peat. It gave me I had this fear that it might be a little bit oily with the scent, but I liked the slightly smoky and the hint of peat. It got me very excited to taste it. So that ended up with a score of 28 for me. I don't know if you guys usually break these down in that way. So I really enjoyed the aroma. In fact, I was like very excited about what the taste would be like. However, the palate, there was a lot going on trying to figure it out. And I feel like I kind of wanted more out of it than I was getting when it comes to that smokiness and that peat that they introduced you on the nose. It didn't quite come through as much in the flavor, in the palate. So for the palate, I got the front of the palate was pretty oaky. Just kind of had that oak wood taste to it. And then it moved to just a hint of smoke. And then the finish, so then it ended in kind of a deep plum for me, but then the after, like kind of the after effects, the finish and just sitting here, I'm getting the peat in the finish, like way after I've tasted it. So I might need to change my finish and rank that a little bit higher. But palate, I gave it a 27, and finish, because I wasn't overly excited about the dry plum flavor, but like I said, now that it's had a chance to kind of just sit in my mouth and on my palate for a while, I'm getting that peat at the end. So my overall score ended up being an 88 on this Scotch.
Nice. Would you take it to a black tie affair?
If I'm taking black tie, I mean, always going to Lagavulin, and so not quite. I'm not taking. No, this would not be my black tie affair, but this would be an impressive Scotch. Up camping. Let me break this out. I think everybody when I was up camping would enjoy this. At a house gathering, kind of sitting around watching a game or doing whatever. I would anything manly. I actually put that as the presentation. It looked very manly.
You don't think black tie events are manly?
Yeah. They're not. I wouldn't call them term rugged, so maybe I'm looking for rugged manly, like rugged. That's more like smooth and sophisticated manly. So there's a different thing, I guess, going on there. No, probably not a black tie, but it's a good, I mean, I would not shy away from sharing this with people. It's a very good Scotch. I think everyone would enjoy it.
So like we usually say like game night. So it sounds like you would take it to like a game night.
For sure, yeah.
And is this something you would put on your shelf?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good Scotch. It's not overpowering with the smoke or the peat. Very good. Very good.
Just Karen would not be offended by it.
She would not like it because you would smell she does not like anything that smells a little bit peaty or a little bit smoky. Okay. So she would not enjoy it at all. But for me, it's right up my alley. Anything, like I said at the beginning, with a little bit of peat or a lot, I want more peat. That's what I want. Just a hint of smokiness. Yeah, I didn't want too much smokiness. Like the old Highland Park used to, which they don't even make that anymore. Now it's like Highland Park Viking Honor. And the smoke is all gone. I don't know if you guys.
They still have the other one.
Do they really?
I haven't found it. Is a smoother.
It's a smoother version. Yeah, it's not. It has almost no smoke to it. But this doesn't overpower with the smoke. But you do get smoke if you like smoke.
All right. Well, I'll go next. The Isle of Raasay. So this particular Scotch, I actually did dig the presentation. I like how it looks really clean and crisp. Not a whole lot of writing at least on the front and the sides. The information that's on the back is actually informational stuff, so I did enjoy it. I like how it has the open window, and the bottle is unique to itself and how it's designed.
I like that open window too. Yeah. I didn't mention the box, but that is kind of a cool effect.
It is, and then the topper being wood with a real cork. I enjoy all those things,
and it's etched in there,
and it has an etching on there. The one drawback I did not like about it is the plastic wrapping around the topper. I would have just loved to have it just on there with the taping that it has on there, or have like a foil or even a wax enclosure. Because of that plastic around the top, I knocked it down a point because I would have given it a 5, but I gave it a 4 on presentation, so 4 out of 5. The color, I love the color. I put medium gold of that slight tinge to the amber. So I gave that 5 out of 5, knowing that it is no color added, so that makes it even better.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the nose, I got some sweet malt, like some sweetness from the malt, with some black currants, which is probably coming from the Bordeaux casks, with some hints of peat. And really with the malt here and the sweetness, I put summer sweetness. So like, when you go out to a meadow during the summertime, and you can get like when there's like a nice breeze, sometimes you get like a smell of like some kind of sweetness in the air from like the grass or whatever that's going on in there. So that's what I put there, summer sweetness. I like it. I thought the bouquet or nose was really great. It's very inviting. I gave that 26 out of 30. The high point for me, and this is funny, the high point for me is the palate, but this is where I have the least amount of stuff I have written down. Here, once again, I get like, what I really enjoyed about the palate is that you can actually taste the influences of the different casks that they used. And I gave it like a light to medium body, but it gives you, like when it first hits my palate, I get the sweetness of the rye from the rye barrels, which is really nice. It gives it like a nice kind of flavor to it. And then that kind of goes into some like hints of mineral. I think that's coming probably from like their water source. And then going into some black currants or some like red berries coming from the Bordeaux casks. And I really enjoyed that on the palate. And I think the way they do the maturation process here, it really kind of highlights the water. I think it highlights the rye casks, and it highlights the Bordeaux casks, which I'm a big fan of it. I think it tastes great. And when you come to the finish, this is where I get some warming spices I put warming spices with peat, summer meadow with hints of oak and smoke. And I really enjoyed that. I gave that 25 out of 30 points. So I went 5 for color, 4 for presentation, 26 for aroma, 27 for palate, 25 for finish. Give me a grand total of 87 points. Now, as far as the black tie affair, if it had a better theme going around the top there, I would take it to a black tie affair if they didn't have the plastic topping on it. Because the plastic topping is on there, the plastic seal knocks it out of black tie affair contention, I guess.
Gotcha.
But I take it to game night. Yeah, I take it to game night. I share it with my friends and I game night. And I do think it has a place on the shelf. I think it's tasty. It's enjoyable. It's a little bit of a different treat or a different experience, if you will, than maybe some of the other ones that we're used to with the Glenmorangie or the Macallan or Belvini or Delmore. So it's a nice change of pace. So yeah, I think it has a spot on the shelf.
All right. Well, for me, this Scotch was a blast. And I think what I like most about it is actually, even as a non-age statement, single malt, it reminds me of youth. I love that this Scotch reminds me of youth. And starting off with the bat, I'm kind of torn with you guys because I love the presentation, but for me, there is just something that either isn't aged enough or isn't profound enough to make it that 5, but it is such a solid 4. I love the topper. I love the solid cork. I actually dig the label. The bottle, I'm kind of there with Brian, where I do think it's a little bit more rugged. I think that's a good word for it. And when I think of most scotches, I do want to think about more of the finesse side of that liquor. For 46.4% ABV, though, I'm not tasting the alcohol at all. It is great. It is smooth. I love it. Presentation of 4. The color is fantastic. Non-chill filtered, no color added. You got to remember that creates a color that has not been adulterated, so to speak. And it is fantastic. I love it. It's a solid 5. Here's where I think some of our scores actually differ. And that is, for me, the nose. The nose is good. And there is a lot on the nose. I've got hints of red apple and cherries, of a wood fire smoke, and of an earthy vanilla. But it was actually my weakest score, and significantly. For me, the nose was only a 24. The nose was not, it is not where this Scotch is at for me. Going for from the nose to the palate is where this Scotch gets robust and excites me. And this is part of what, reminds me of youth. It's not so much of dreaming about going for X and Y as you're getting a first car, or going for a hike, going for a trip, going on an airplane ride, going to a foreign country or a foreign state. It's about actually getting there and doing things. And that's where the palate delivers for me. It is getting there. I'm on the palate. I have dark caramel. It's basically a butterscotch swishing in my mouth. There's that revisitation from the nose of cherries and that hint of apple. I get the smoke and, man, a very light and clean, crisp peat. It is not a muddy peat. You said it well, Brian. And for me, this peat is very clean. It's crisp. And as we transition for me, the palate was the strongest score, a 28. To the finish, I get hints of pepper. It is just a little peppery, followed by more smoke, salted nuts. That finish, after a handful of salted nuts, a little bit more butterscotch, and then that sweet oak cask. Noah, you said it great. They're using 3 different types. They've got their American rye whiskey cask, or at least I'm assuming it's American. Could just be rye whiskey cask that they're using, mixed with the Chinkapin oak casks, virgin Chinkapin oak casks, and then their Bordeaux red wine cask. They don't tell us. I wasn't able to find, at least anywhere, about which of those casks for this expression were peated or non-peated, but it is delightful. For the finish for me at 26, my total an 87. And I always try to think about a Scotch about this. As much as I love the fact that this Scotch makes me feel young, it also reminds me of like when I think of like a Miley Cyrus today versus a Miley Cyrus 5-8 years ago. I'll take the today version any day, but man, anyone with Miley Cyrus, she's going to make you feel young, right?
I suppose so.
It is great. This is a fantastic Scotch, and it really does make me think of that.
The Miley Cyrus Scotch scale.
Yeah, I didn't know about
MCSS, that's a new one.
Well, last week we had a different one. This week it's Miley Cyrus. But no, I really feel like, that's something about this where she's got so much energy. That's where the palate's at. And it's not so much about the fact that this Scotch on this isle, whether it's got a multiple century lineage of illicit alcohol creation, this is a relatively new production, at least for the mass market here in America. I'm just tasting and finding out about it for the first time, but it's great because I think in its youth, it's got so much energy, and I look forward to seeing more.
Black tie?
Black tie, I actually would take it to a black tie event. I wouldn't mind that. And the reason is I would explain it like everything I just said. I would let them know, hey, this is where I'm at with this and this is why. I don't think this. I want you to smell it anyway. Now, put that on your tongue. Taste that palate. What do you think? The finish? Guess what? When you are done with this, you are going to know you drank a peated Scotch, but you're not going to worry about breathing in anyone's face because you're not feeling like you just got up with 50 Band-Aids on. Would I take it to a game night? Again, this is a fun Scotch, reasonably priced right around the $60 range.
I think so. 60, 70.
$60, $70 range. It is a fun Scotch that I think most people could enjoy, and if not, at least endure. It is fun for that. Is there a place for it on my shelf? Absolutely. If for no other reason, then I don't know of any other Scotch from the Isle of Raasay.
All right.
Well, I got a question for you guys. So since we ranked them, the presentation, the color, those are kind of minor scores. The other 3, aroma, palate, and finish. What was your top rated?
Oh, mine palate. For sure. Palate.
Yours was palate? What was your score? I was a 27 on the palate.
Mine was 28.
27.
27? Yours was 28? Okay. My top was the aroma.
Yeah.
My aroma was 28. That was like the one that just got me sucked in. And then what was your lowest score?
Finish 25.
Yep,
for me it was actually the nose because I like the finish, the way it is a long finish. There's just enough pepper in there, and I love it anytime it's whether it's a Bordeaux wine or anything.
Yeah.
When you get an earthy oak cask finish on that tongue that's long, I love that. That's my favorite thing about a wine or a Scotch.
I had a 25 on the finish also. But it's because I did not enjoy that immediate finish. That deep plum immediately, but just let it kind of sit. Just wait 30 seconds, wait a minute, and you're like, I want more of that. So I probably could have scored the finish up higher, but that immediate finish was not. That's what knocked it down for me a little bit.
Restaurant review. This week's restaurant was the old Santa Fe Mexicans restaurant in Parker Road, or in Parker off of, what is it, 20 Mile?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's in the middle of a strip mall.
Right by a Chili's.
Right, yeah, well, the Chili's like on the other side of the parking lot. It's like right next to this music store you almost can't see. And next to like a 24-hour fitness, I think, maybe, or a couple doors down from a 24-hour fitness. Any case, it would be pretty easy to miss this restaurant if you're not kind of sort of looking for it. When you first walk in, it's nothing really special to look at. It's kind of dark inside. They had a couple TVs up. Only one person working. And so...
As a wait staff. They had a one-person wait staff.
Yeah, one person working.
I don't know how many people were in the back.
Yeah, I don't know either. Maybe he was a cook too.
He was busy. He was running. He was moving.
So, I got the steak fajitas. That's what I ordered there. The steak fajitas actually tasted okay, but here's the problem. I think because there was only one waiter, I think my meal might have sat up in the window for a little bit too long, because when it came out to me, the cheese for my fajitas were kind of like the old melty looking,
like out of the microwave melted cheese, kind of a little slightly hardened.
Encino Man, the cheese is old and moldy.
Yeah, well, I don't know about moldy, but definitely it looked like it was starting to melt and kind of looked old. So, but the steak has good flavor to it. Out of 10 points, I'd probably give the food maybe a 6. I wasn't super impressed with it. Now, if it came out fresh, it might get closer to maybe an 8. But the way I received it, it was more like a 6. But it has potential to be better. The service, there's only one guy working, and I hate to knock the guy and say the service is horrible there, but the service was horrible because there was only one guy working. And so I'm not blaming the waiter himself, but maybe the management for only having one waiter working. And because of that, the service was poor. We had to wait. We got there basically 5:30, and we didn't get out till almost 8 o'clock. So that kind of tells you what the service is right there. It was very poor. So overall, I would not take a date there. I would not meet a friend. I would not meet a friend there. I don't even think I would probably go back there. Although the pricing on the food was decent. I mean, the price value of the food was good. So I guess if I really wanted a decent pricing on the food, maybe I might go back. But overall, I'm just going to give the place a 6.
All right. El 6.
My review is going to be pretty negative, and I just went off negative about not singing the national anthem. So I don't want to be figured to be this overly negative person. So Jesse, you go ahead first, and I'll close it out.
Right,
I'll be quick.
Are you sure you don't want?
Yeah, and then okay. So so for me, I show up, right, and you guys have been there for about 15-20 minutes,
an hour 45.
And all I am is I'm thirsty. I'm just dying of thirst. So we wait, and 20 minutes that no one's even spoken to us, and I'm just sitting there just hoping for a glass of water. So the guy finally comes up, and I put in an order for a beer, and I asked for water, and I don't know, 10 minutes later we get our beers, and I'm like, hey, can you remember that water? And he's like, oh, yeah. And he never came and got the water. I had to actually go up and be like, hey, can I seriously please get water? I'm so thirsty for water. And yeah, I got water here. So now he finally comes with that. So that was a little disappointing. So that kind of put me off initially. The sign is a good looking sign, as you're driving up to the place. I'm like, oh, this might be interesting. But the inside, it's nothing more than just booths and sectioned off places. It felt very kind of claustrophobic. Even though we sat right up near the window, it felt very just kind of closed in. And I did order the carne asada, and I have never had a bad carne asada in my life until today. It was not seasoned. There was nothing going on. They put a flank steak on the grill and grilled one side, grilled the other, and gave it to me. It was very, very blah. So my score was a score out of 10. I'm not going there again. So it's probably a 2 or a 3 or something. Pretty low.
And here on Scotch Hour, episode 125, the old Santa Fe Mexican Grill. All right, myself had a little bit different experience than Noah and Brian. I had the chorizo, crispy chileno, along with some house margaritas. And for me, my meal was actually pretty good altogether. My food was an 8. I enjoyed every bite of it. The only part that could have been a little bit better was I had a couple extra crunchy grains of rice. Maybe they were from yesterday. Who knows? Just mixed in the barrel. But only thing that offset that tragically. Not the only thing. The biggest thing that offset that was the service. The service was absolutely sitting down there at a 3. And I agree. Here's the struggle is that guy might have been the manager. The only server in the place. The only person who was the bartender, the server, the hostess, and everything might have been the manager as well. In which case it's tough because are they just waiting till game over and they bankrupt or something else? Who knows? But overall service was a 3. I will say, much like Noah said, value, the guy took care of us in the sense of that is value was a 7. A couple margaritas, and Brian, I owe you $2, and a couple margaritas and 2 crispy chili relleno with beans and rice was only $23. So that was great. The atmosphere was a 7. I did have the window seat though, and when I say the window seat, not my back to it, my face to it, so I was not feeling claustrophobic. Overall though, total was a 6. Would I take a friend there or meet a friend there? Not intentionally. As much as I dislike Chili's most of the time, I'd go to Chili's first. Would I take a date there? Not with that service. The service was, it was wretched. It was really bad. Overall score for me, right in that 5 to 6 range. So we'll say a 6. And again, I actually really enjoyed my food, but the rest of it was not there.
All right. Well, if you do go there, you can tell them that you heard about some old Santa Fe Mexican restaurant on Scotch Hour. On to our Smarter Challenge. This week's Smarter Challenge, it was to do a movie review on Oppenheimer. Just for those who don't, spoiler alerts, if we get this out on anywhere near on time, spoiler alert. Or if you haven't seen it by the time you watch this show, spoiler alert.
Or if you have no concept of or introduction to history, it's pretty historically accurate.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So this movie's about. Well, I think we kind of discussed this. Like we aren't exactly sure what Chris Nolan's point was in this movie. So, but in essence, it is about Robert Oppenheimer, who is the the father of the U.S. atomic bomb. The development of Los Altos. Is that right? Los Altos, right?
Los Alamos?
Los Alamos,
yes. Sorry, Los Alamos. I said it earlier and I fucked it up right there, but
it's all
Los
good.
Alamos. And then also the cabinet appointment of Strauss. And and basically like how maybe Oppenheimer might have been screwed over with his legacy. And it's kind of funny too because even Einstein told him like once you get the award, this is basically what's happening, and you see it happen to him. In any case, that's kind of like it in a nutshell, like what the movie's about. So I'm going to start off first here. I mean, it's kind of it's based off of historical events. But what was the most impactful or most memorable scene in the movie?
The most memorable?
Yeah, okay, most impactful.
Oh, impactful. Okay. I was like, that scene in the conference room where he's reflecting back on sex with the communist lady while she's
Florence
like,
Pugh.
yeah, Florence Pugh. Is that what her name was?
That's why I said most impactful.
Most impactful. All right, okay.
Because
Most memorable,
ironically, no one had already talked about.
My most impactful was when they, introduce. It's early on in the movie, and Oppenheimer is meeting with Strauss about accepting a position at Princeton. Right? Was it Princeton?
I'm not sure which university it was.
I think it was Princeton. And Einstein is there, out the window, standing at the lake.
Oh, no, that was the National Atomic something lab or something.
No, where Oppenheimer meets first meets with Strauss, and it's over a position, and he's offering the position to Oppenheimer. It's the most prestigious thing. You live right there at the mansion.
It wasn't a university. It was an institute.
So it's basically a front for the military.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Princeton.
It could.
I almost put some money on that with you guys. I might put $5 on that.
At the time, Princeton was known for that type of engineering.
Pretty sure it was.
He was. I at the beginning of the movie, it was.
It could have been tied to Princeton, but I think it's an institute that was a front for the military.
Yeah.
No, it was. I mean, he literally said this is a very prestigious position.
Big it up.
And he's like, that's why I'm considering it.
This is the missionary position. It's very prestigious.
He eventually does accept the position at Princeton on down the road. But anyway, so he's there, and out the window you see Einstein at the lake. He goes, well, why don't you go talk to him? So he goes and talks to him, and then as he's walking past, Einstein walks past Strauss, very angry and upset. And you kind of have this whole, and it gets brought up throughout the movie, what was said. And exactly what was said comes out in the end when Oppenheimer admits, he goes, all those calculations and things we came up with that you said, be careful, you may, cause the end of the world. And he goes, I think we've done that. And that was after the atomic bomb had dropped, I believe. And he was like, and he started going towards, we need to end this arms race because it will just get catastrophically worse until, and that's why I think Oppenheimer was so opposed to one-upping, our country, their country in the arms race. And, it was a proponent of the United Nations putting a cap on those weapons of mass destruction. So that was...
So it was at Princeton, and it was tied to the Institute of Advanced Studies.
Yeah, it's a military front with Princeton. At least at the time it was. But Princeton was known for their nuclear ideology. That's where.
Well, I mean, but the position was at Princeton. Like they were physically at Princeton. They were physically present there, and they may had a name for the school he was working at. Every school has a business school and a whatever, but so that was my most impactful moment when, because I believe that in the end that was the point of the movie, was to make you kind of reflect and think, wow, this really could lead to the end of all ends if we're not careful.
You want to go next? Or you want me to go next?
I can go next.
Okay.
I think for me the most memorable or impactful scene in the movie was actually when they tested the bomb. And because up to this point, right, you have this build up of him gathering all the scientists, them doing the research, them building it, and it's kind of fast paced all throughout there. And then that rainstorm hits, and they're waiting for the weather to subside, so that way they can test the bomb, so that way they can get the information out to, I don't remember if it was Secretary of State or the President when they're doing that meeting in Potsdam. I think it was Potsdam, Germany, but I could be wrong where that meeting was. But in any case, they were coming up on that deadline, and so you had music playing and all that, and then as soon as they dropped the bomb, it was super silent. There's no noise, and it was just quiet in the whole theater. And I think that part just made it so impactful and memorable. Just that whole section of how it just went from scene to scene to scene to scene of the different groups that were monitoring the bomb, and how it was just pure silent throughout the theater. No music playing in the background from the film itself or anything. So I thought that was really moving.
All right. I agree. That was dynamic for sure. And Chris Nolan is absolutely an enthralling study because of his works, Man of Steel, those with Batman, or The Dark Knight. And with these, as I look back and I think about the most impactful moments, man, those most impactful moments become meaningless if you don't have all the little moments that Chris Nolan creates. And we talked about this movie being 3 hours long, maybe unnecessarily. But when I think about the bomb and the dropping and everything else, without Emily Blunt playing Kitty, saying, "You're doing it, aren't you?" Like, I think those big moments become little moments. And again, I think what I'm trying to emphasize here is, Chris Nolan, you've done an amazing job. You are a fantastic artist, especially when you're dealing with history, because you're trying to keep it so true. But for me, the most impactful moment, and we talked about other movies and what does it mean at the end? What was the goal? And when I think about the conversation with Albert Einstein and the very fact that this could end the world, not, in the way it's phrased could be, oh, this could begin the end of the world, or this could literally end the world, is the bottom line. Is the real truth is, we could set off this bomb and everything could go bye-bye. I don't know if Chris Nolan was going there intentionally or not, but where I took this is he did destroy some world. Well, this is, to me, Oppenheimer, and this character that Cillian Murphy plays with Robert is, they did ultimately create what we know now as the multiverse. They did create a fracture. You don't set off nuclear explosions without setting off fractures in a universe. Isn't it weird? They set off all these nuclear bombs, and shortly thereafter there's aliens trying to figure out what the hell we were doing on this very site, or close to, as the world's rotation and orbit and axis changes and we go to a new global warming, that the earth is surfaced again. I think it's really just interesting to me is really the science is saying, hey, guess what? You may not think we killed this world, and we may not have killed this world here. We did destroy something somewhere. We have changed history forever. We have created a fracture, not just on this planet and ending a war and possibly starting others, but also possibly destroying another part of a multiverse. And I don't know if Chris Nolan, if you ever want to talk about it, call us up on the show, please. Write us a letter. You can easily contact us. You got the resources. We know that. I would love to talk to you about that, because when I look at it, that is absolutely something that is strong and true to me, is the world, not just the world, the universe was forever changed, and not just our universe.
Yeah, well, obviously the world is forever changed by that. And I think there's a good question posed here in there. You have Oppenheimer, who after dropping that bomb, he did do it for a reason. He allowed it, he built it and allowed it for a reason, to hopefully scare people from not wanting to build them or continue to do pileups or build up of it. And for him, his whole thought process was, even though we have the technology, as long as we don't build it, and then we're not going to cause a buildup or an arms race with Russia. But then on the other side, you have the military-industrial complex, who are saying well, if we don't build it, and Russia has the technology, they're going to build it and have it first. Mm-hmm. And so then we're going to be behind, and then we're going to have to build it. And so their whole idea is we got to build it first. And no, we're not going to listen to you, Oppenheimer, because you don't want us to build it.
Yeah, you've become weak. You seem fractured. And I think that's a great point. And
I think here you can see both sides of the story. Oppenheimer's thought process of well, if we build it, it's going to cause Russia to build it. And then it's going to cause an arms race. But on the opposite side, too, you have to think in chess, a couple moves ahead. Okay, if we have the technology and they have the technology, are they just going to sit on the technology and not build it? Because that seems pretty naive to think that way, because most likely they are going to build it, and then we're going to have to build it, and then we're going to be in an arms race anyways. Mm-hmm. So really, what is the right path? I mean, I see Oppenheimer, he kind of got the shaft, but the same token, I can see why he got the shaft, and what they did to him, was it right? I don't know if it was right or wrong, but at the same time, I can see why they did it.
Well, for me, I feel like I understood where he was coming from, because they asked the question during those hearings, those closed door hearings, kind of well, what's the difference between you made the atom bomb? Why can't you make the hydrogen bomb? What's the difference? What's stopping you? And even I kind of talked about this with my son Dylan because he's very into history, and we had a good conversation about this movie. And I said, I think initially when he was hired on to build the bomb, it was, can they do it? And why were they doing it? They weren't doing it necessarily to drop the bomb. They were doing it, to maybe drop the bomb, but he had mentioned in the movie, he was very patriotic. He's like, I am an American. This is I love this country. That's why I did it, because I love this country. And had they not built it, had we not put a stop to it, then Germany would have built it ahead of us. And if Germany were to win, then Nazi Germany wins. And when Nazi Germany wins, then the world really looks different when Nazi. So in my view, watching him, his explanation was, look, we built it so that we could stop that. That was what we were trying to stop. And then all the guilt and all the negativity was, well, that had been stopped already. The Nazi Germany, it was done. Hitler had died. It was over. Japan was on their last breath. They were not going to continue to, further much along in this war. The war was over. So, why kill 220,000 civilians and officers, other things? That was a thing that, I think for him, that's when the movie got dark for me, was and they showed all the people at Los Alamos, cheering and happy. And I was like, God, that's such a horrible depiction to be cheering and applauding that people just got massacred. And that's where he was at. So that point about Chris Nolan, what was the point of the movie? For me, that was the impactful thing, is okay, I did it and that happened, but I didn't realize that it would really, do this. It would kill that many people.
Yeah, when they show that scene when they're all cheering after they dropped the bombs and they were and the bombs were successful, that is kind of a weird, you can see it from that point of view, the Americans, we did something to help stop the war. And I think back then, the numbers, they're showing, we might have had more lives lost if we continued to fight it out, because Japan had no, they weren't going to surrender.
Yeah. Who knows? We don't know. But
I'll give you my opinion on that particular instinct aspect. A lot of this movie has to deal with the culture and time. So the culture at the time, if you will. And we are talking about a time when it was ride or die. To that point, Japan would not have given up unless we gave them a real reason to. Now, this is ugly. And here's the truth of the matter is, no one feels the same way if Germany dropped a bomb on us a day before we launched our plane to go drop a bomb on Japan, or if Japan did the same thing. No one's cheering for that. But the truth of the matter is, you have to accept your licks just like you accept your victories. And if the Americans can do that, then that's a different piece. America was looking for a dominant role in this. And at the end of the day, I do think there were aspects. You see the conversations between individuals in power. Oh, this could end the world. This could do this. This could do a number of million of different things. But it reminds me of in John Wick Chapter 2, where Claudia Gerini, playing Gianna D'Antonio, is confronted with John Wick, who has been sent there to kill her. And is opposed to letting him do that, she takes her own life. And I think that's part of what creating an atomic bomb was about, was, well, if someone's going to end the goddamn world as we know it, we're going to do it.
Well, here too, right? For Japan, right? Their whole honor system, they're just not...
They're not going to lay down.
For them to save face, right? They're just not going to be yeah, we surrender. So you have to, show a certain amount of force to cause that surrender. But also at the same time, you knew, Russia... because someone had leaked the information to Russia, had already started to start their development of the atomic bomb as well. So you had to start playing chess at this point. What can we do to flex our power enough to show our dominance to, one, cause Japan to surrender and not lose face, and two, put a stop to the Russian advancement in Europe.
But how did that put a stop to the Russian advancement?
It did.
It did.
But how?
Once the message got over that Russia was like, and we're backing our asses up.
Yeah, because they would have kept advancing in Germany until we dropped the bomb. And then after we dropped the bomb, they didn't have their bomb yet, so they knew that we could drop another one on them. So they
Gotcha.
Yeah. And pursuing forward, because even I think it's General MacArthur who talked about the war is not necessarily now between us and Japan; it's now between us and Russia.
Always has been.
And we have to do something now to thwart or put a halt to that threat.
Yeah, that's what was so interesting is, Russia was our ally, and yet they were with the Red Scare. It was like they were the predominant enemy, In that movie, kind of put that, because they talk a lot about the Communist USA Party, different things.
They
and
technically were our enemy because communism is the opposite of freedom.
Anyone who is surprised about Russia's invasion in Ukraine didn't learn from history.
Right?
Like, seriously, everything that these people are surprised about now is something that has been revisited in all of history. And it is amazing to me how much our current society and culture is forgetting that. Brian, do you remember when we were growing up in high school? Well,
vaguely.
Our parents were growing up in high school. And it was all about Save a Tree, right?
No, I know. Not so much.
You don't remember Save a Tree? Plant a tree, Earth Day. You never had any of that? What damn school?
Well, yeah, I mean, I did Arbor Day. Planted a tree. I've done that.
You never
sure.
remember those Save a Tree, Plant a Tree, none of that?
A little bit. It wasn't a big deal. I remember like the Young Astronauts Club. We had Young Astronauts.
I mean, yeah, I'm like him. Like, I remember it. Like, I know about it. Like,
here's the problem. Go look it up in history books and everything else. It was huge, but we've let it go. And here's the problem is, why was that a big deal? Do you guys remember why? The environment. We were worried about not having enough oxygen and the ozone depleting and global warming if we kept using paper bags. So we started using plastic bags to save a goddamn tree. And now we're like, don't use plastic, use paper.
Yeah.
Well, we all like.
So
I'm just saying
if we start
modern
going down
history.
climate change, then we know they're like that's all like a bunch of fake.
Exactly, we're talking about 20 years of history. People have forgotten why we were saving a tree, and now we're asking them to remember a century of history back to the roots of what created us to be the first to create a nuclear fission device and drop 2 bombs in Japan in their territories, and anyone's going to act surprised that we're where we are? We haven't learned a goddamn thing.
So do you think the government was right, even though like maybe the way they went about it might have been wrong, but do you think it was right to take away Oppenheimer's security clearance?
See, this is where it gets tricky. Morally, no. And this is what's so backwards. Ethically, yes. Because ethics and morals actually do not align. Everyone wants to believe they do. And anyone who says, I love this and that and the other because of ethics is misunderstanding what part of that means. Because ethics isn't about actual morals or doing necessarily what's right. It's about doing what's right for the greater good.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's tough because, I mean, it doesn't seem like at any point in time anything was ever proven that said that he was any type of security risk. That there was, right? I mean, that's just
it. It was not moral.
Yeah,
I mean, circumstantially, yes, he was a risk factor.
Well, everybody was a risk. Everybody at Los Alamos was a risk factor. Anybody who was there, that's why they kept saying compartmentalization, because anybody who was there can go talk to anybody. So everybody.
Well, not only could they go talk to anybody, but most of those scientists were all like communist sympathizers.
Some were, yeah.
Jewish survivors, Holocaust survivors, other different things, pieces that had different values, morals, not necessarily ethics.
So, I mean, honestly, I think the way they went about it might have been wrong, but I think ultimately he was, just because he was still sending money and he was still a sympathizer to some communist.
I don't think he was at that time. They made it. They
was
were
a potential threat,
Then everybody at Los Alamos was a potential threat. Like
Everyone
everybody
who spoke against the greater good was a potential threat. This is the problem with politics. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the U.S. government or work. Any of our works, we all have to deal with politics.
Which
we all have to toe a line.
Leads to the second thing that the movie was about. Because we just talked about, the morals, of creating the bomb and dropping a bomb, and what the impact of that, the ethics, how that changed the world. The other thing that the movie was about was that, for me, like I was trying, you try and kind of personalize a movie, and you brought it up, Jesse, about we all have those different politics or power structures, and that movie was about the different levels of power, different types of power. And I wrote it down because I did want to talk about it on the show tonight, and that is certain people had positional power of authority, Strauss, Graves, right, Truman. Positional power, right? But certain people had intelligence and wisdom, or just intelligence power. All the scientists, they had the power of intelligence. And then Einstein, to some effect, Kitty Oppenheimer had power of wisdom. Like
she was terrible with kids, though.
Terrible with kids, but I was amazed. But you know what?
The man motivated.
But here's what I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand because he was not very good to her in the fact that he, he did have some other affair that it came out that he really did have an affair, not just the communist lady that was before.
Does it really count?
Yeah, no, that was not the affair. That was just a relationship before he was married.
Hey, Kitty.
I
think he was with Kitty at that point. When he went back to go visit.
To go back and visit. Okay, yeah. So yeah, you're right. So anyway,
you're talking about the other that
the blonde lady, the scientist's wife that he had an affair with too.
I'll tell you, scientists and mathematicians are very different. Scientists, and dude, when I went to school mines, I experienced it all. I used to struggle with it explicitly myself. Dude, we're assholes.
Well, that's why I love any movie that shows intelligence as power. I love that. Like, I love A Beautiful Mind. I love Good Will Hunting. I love this. Anything that shows that, like, intelligence is a form of power. But it's oftentimes trumped by whoever your boss doesn't have to be smarter than you, but he's your boss.
It's about,
or she is your boss. That's the authority power comes from. But you know what? I here's the thing I loved is when Kitty was going to testify at the closed door,
congressional
hearing that was going on.
Was it a senator hearing?
It was congressional.
Okay.
It was I think it was like a security.
I don't know who it was. Whether it was his lawyer or somebody was like to Oppenheimer was like, "Ooh, are you sure she should testify?" And he's like, "No, she trust me. She's got it." And again, back to my, shout out to like when you have that in a woman, that's how I am with Erin. I'm like, no, trust me.
Your beer, baby.
Trust me. My wife's got my back. Let her step right up there because he had that faith. That was pretty cool. So that's where I kind of personalized movies.
About like everyone has like a child mentality, but we're adults. When he talks about him and Kitty.
Who he did?
Yeah, like right before he told the lawyers like we're adults.
So Noah brought something up that was very interesting, and that was the relationship between the biologist and Robert. And in that,
who's Robert?
Oppenheimer.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But with that, how
who's the biologist?
He tried to do nice things to, and
that's the naked chick humping him on the
She was the biologist, the communist. She was the communist. Okay.
She's the biologist.
Okay,
but with that, he tried to do nice things with her, to her, give her flowers, all these things, and she treated him like shit.
Yeah,
like,
that's
I don't
weird.
want this shit. That's a scientist. Like, I hate to say it. That is a scientist. She's a biologist. She's like, guess what? Get me off. I want to get you off. It doesn't. We're not even trying to procreate here. I'm not fighting it. This is biology. This is science. This is real. These are psychological needs. Let's not fight it. And then at the end of the day, don't say it's something we're not. We're not getting married. We're not doing this. We're not moving on. I'm going to go kill myself.
Yeah, but she ends up killing herself because she did need all that stuff and she didn't realize it.
But she didn't need that. Nobody needs that. We want it, and that's the difference. But she was depressed for a myriad of different reasons. But with that, we don't need that. That's the problem with someone who is only a scientific mind. A problem, not the problem. A problem.
Well, and coming back to that different power structure, but that he was getting at, that's when, the movie turned and it became about the not congressional hearing, but the Strauss and
Strauss's cabinet appointment.
The cabinet appointment and all that. For me, that's where you kind of get that bit of joy where it wasn't the authority power winning, the corrupt power of authority.
Is the one that threw him under the bus.
Oh yeah. So what I love, Brian, I love that you brought this up because we all deal with this at work too.
Yes,
and
exactly.
That is, we are muscles, whether it's our brain or our body, that are employed, and that word is simply not exaggerated. We are employed to get a task done. Doesn't matter if we make $10,000 a year or $1 million a year, we're employed to do that. But the moment we have created the bomb they needed, we are expendable. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants to think the movies like The Expendables are just a movie. No, guess what? That is real life with our military, with our retail workers, with our medical workers, with everyone. Save your money, create a retirement, buy a nice house, retire with a great wife, have something that's a nest egg, because when you have been expended, all you've got is what you guys have saved. And that is reality.
All right. Any last words here about Oppenheimer? I say definitely, my last word, definitely is go see it. But plan a whole afternoon.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
After seeing it, you no longer wonder why they only have 2 showings a day.
Yeah, you definitely don't come out of there happy or anything.
Well, and that was my thing that I kept bringing. That's why I'm like, it's okay. It's an okay movie because you get to learn about history and stuff. But for me, and this is where my son Dylan and I got in a little bit of a debate about it, I did not feel like it needed to be 3 hours. It was too long. I think that, and he's like, well, what are you going to cut out? The beginning, the middle, the end? I'm like, no, you don't cut out large. You're not going to cut that, but cut out, the little stuff that you don't always need. It could have been more exciting, more to the point.
So here's the thing, and Noah, you're probably going to say the exact same thing. That's life. And I think as we've been talking about it, I realized that this movie was supposed to be about life, and his life in particular, but life in general.
Well, life is long.
And life, if you are blessed, you will have all those moments where you're like, I didn't need today. All I did was paint the house or wash the car or wax on, wax off. But at the end of the day, you look back 30 years later, and all of that was necessary to get to the point where you are, and saying, well, the kids are off at college, and now it's just Aaron and I on a road trip, and God damn it, life is great.
Honestly, to me, the movie didn't seem like 3 hours.
It didn't seem
I did, because I had too much caffeine or something, because I had to go to the bathroom 3 times. I had to go. So I was uncomfortable.
Focusing on the little, this is why I brought it up earlier. I kept focusing on the little chasms, the little pieces, the interactions between him and Kitty, or Matt Damon. How have we not mentioned him more? Is he actually played a really good role? Robert Downey Jr.'s role seems so minuscule when you look at it in the big picture, but at the end of the day, it was huge.
Yeah,
it was a huge role. He also took a pay cut. Only got paid $4 million for that.
I remember, the first couple scenes where he was in it, I was like, that is Robert Downey Jr., right? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it is, but then I'm like, I don't.
There were some big names in there.
Yeah, it was a good movie. It was definitely a good movie. The only thing I would change, my final word on it is, your final word was go see it. My final word is it did need to be as long. It was a little long for me. Your final word, Jesse?
Without going super tangent.
My final word is Chris Nolan, I want more. I want to know where this was supposed to go and where you want it to go. I want to hear some things, whether it's an interview 10 years from now, like with, The Sopranos, and we finally find out the answer. I loved it. At the end of the day, there were times when I couldn't figure out where's your point? But I loved it. I did love the experience.
I do think I need to see it again one more time, though.
I would say the same thing. I'm hesitant to sit through another 3 hours of my life. I could watch it again, but I'd have to watch it at home and be able to fast forward. Like, okay, I remember this part.
All right, Jesse, next week's subject. And
all right. Well, I have been dying to do Justified City Primeval. However, it is 8 episodes long, and they are not all going to air by the time we do our next show. So with that,
have you seen the first 2 episodes yet?
I've only seen the first one, and I loved it.
What is it?
The new Justified series.
Justified? Is that the cowboy guy?
Dude, his daughter in the courthouse.
Have you guys seen any? Have you guys done anything with Yellowstone? Has you guys
Never
ever
seen it.
We talked about it briefly when we went over Kevin Costner, but we have not done it. But so, what my smarter challenge is, and Brian, you are more than welcome to be part of this, is to watch and review the Belgian Grand Prix weekend, this upcoming weekend, and really talk about what are the things in Formula One that make it impactful to you. If there was something you could change, what would you? What do you love and hate about top drivers? The Scotch, we're finally going to have the Ask Egg. We don't know if we're pronouncing that one right either. The Ask Egg that we were going to have last week when Debbie showed up, and instead we had the Ardbeg Heavy Vapors.
All right, well, with that, thank you everyone who watches us on YouTube and Rumble. We greatly appreciate you and all the new subscribers that we recently had. We hit number 90, so we're getting a little bit closer to that 1,000 mark. So
It's almost
like 9%? You got 91% more.
1% in the past year.
So, but please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to be a Patron member, take the link down below. We greatly appreciate that. And Jesse, you can close out.
Oh, well, Brian, do you have any final things you want to say before we close out?
No, thanks for having me again. It's fun to shoot the shit.
All right, well, thank you for being here, Brian.
You bet.
Life is great. Please remember that. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Noah and I have talked in the past about different things, and I hate to revisit the negative, but Oppenheimer actually kind of seems like the appropriate time to do it. It is easy, especially as male, when you look at different rates, including suicide rate, to get depressed. Life can be great. It is not going to be easy. There is a lot of weight on your shoulders. We understand that. Don't give up the good fight. Get help if you need it. Seek friends and family. That's one of the reasons we do this here at Scotch Hour. Call us if you need us.
My camera's off.
And with that, remember, drink
how long it's been off.
Responsibly. Do not drink and drive. And until next episode, Scotchman, cheers!
We hope you enjoyed this evening's episode of Scotch Hour. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you have not done so already, please become a Patron member, with memberships starting as low as $1 a month. Thank you, and hopefully you have a wonderful evening.